Hello and welcome to Matt and Mike Pull Focus. I'm Mike.
And I'm not.
And Matt, it's that time of year again. We've gone through a few Christmas specials before. We did Muppets Christmas Carol. We did National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. So one of yours and one of mine. And decided this year that we're going to have a nice shared one. One that we both can agree on is one of our Christmas favourites. And that's John McTiernan's 1988 Christmas classic, I should say, Die Hard.
We can agree it's one of our favourites, but can we agree that it's a Christmas movie? That's probably a good place to start.
Probably. I know that is the controversial topic, like thrown around offices and groups of friends every year. But do you consider this a Christmas film?
Well, I mean, for me personally, it's a movie set at Christmas in the same way that Edward Scissorhands is set at Christmas. So it's the thing. I consider Edward Scissorhands a Christmas movie, and I consider Die Hard a Christmas movie in the way that, if Pluto is a planet, you have to class all the other little pieces of shit rock around it a planet as well.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I'm going to say yes, because I like to consider other movies Christmas movies as well. So I couldn't argue this wasn't. I'm going to call Die Hard a Christmas movie. But tell us in the comments below if you think that that's the case.
People have already clicked off. They're not even here to do the comments anymore.
That'll get some fire going.
No, because I've heard people trying to classify Die Hard, whether it's a Christmas movie or not, and whether it has enough of the right aspects of a Christmas movie to really class it as that. And I think it does. I think that we've got the Christmas music in the beginning. There's Christmas trees, the one that falls down in the Nakatomi, the plaza on the 30th floor. People talk about Christmas all the way through. The ho 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 stuff. All the way through,
for Christmas music, in the limo at the beginning. He says to Argyle, he's like, can we have some Christmas music? He says, this is Christmas music. So
yeah. So I think that's
evident from the start, isn't it?
So it's got heartwarming redemption. It's got good triumphing over evil. It's got gigantic teddy bears. What more do you need from a Christmas film?
Well, I've also this film's also always been very close to my heart, because it's one of those few movies that that I watched with my family. Could all watch it together. Every single member of my family. It was it was deemed okay in the same way, like you sort of Return of the Jedi, Terminator 2. To some extent Predator, but probably not quite as much. But
oh my God.
It was the ITV cut that we had of this was family friendly enough that we could watch it, because we had it recorded off one of the TV channels, probably ITV, and so there was it cut out some of the bad language, and I realised now watching it in 4K that some of the gunshots as well, some of the more gory squibs going off weren't in the version that I had.
Muted.
Yeah, and also there was I see it as a really clumsy edit when he says "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker" to Hans. It was "Yippee-ki-yay, Kemosabe." So someone had put Kemosabe over the top of it.
Really?
And it was and it was pretty clumsy now that I think back on it, because it always sounded a bit weird to me. And now that I've seen it on a DVD Blu-ray edit, I realise he says "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker," and and it sounds perfect. So I had this somewhat butchered version of it, but it was just less swearing and a few less gunshots, but the story was still there, and it was pretty much the same movie.
They didn't even go with anything like Melon Farmer or Mother Trucker or some. It's Kemosabe's nothing like it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess that's a reference to the movie that they're referencing. I don't know, but I'm
Western
not quite sure.
Films or
I've never been
maybe.
a Western guy, so I really don't know my Westerns at all. To that extent. But I was actually watching a video on the Wilhelm scream this morning. And that mentioned a load of... Yes, I know, a big sound nerd. But that referenced a bunch of Westerns that I'd never heard. And I was kind of like, shit, I need to do my research. Because my brothers tried to introduce me to a few. I saw Once Upon a Time in the West and... what was the other one? And there was another really cool
Good, the Bad, and the Ugly?
Yes, that one. Yeah, and they are brilliant, but there's something. They're classics, but there's something that it doesn't quite hook me. I don't know. It's just not my genre really. But
no, I'm right there with you. Yeah, I'm never really a big Western fan. But it obviously hit on John McClane because he was always particular to Roy Rogers and even Hans Gruber is familiar with them. So I think that kind of shows how prevalent the Western has been to both of these characters and how they kind of see themselves as either a hero or an anti-hero.
Yeah, they very much know who's the villain from the beginning, don't they? The way they reference it like that, it's all kind of it's all completely on the surface. But there's also, I guess, it's a play on the American hero as well, isn't it? The idea that he's they're very much emphasising the fact that Hans is German and John isn't. Yeah,
But speaking of like quintessential like movies of their genre, I definitely say that Die Hard deserves to be up at the top of like one of the greatest action films of all time.
It's superb, and it's in every single way it's brilliant. It's a great action film. It's so well written, and the character development. That's what I realized from rewatching it yesterday, is that it does that thing that Independence Day does, where it's like it takes that first 25-30 minutes to let you know exactly who everybody is. Yeah. So by the time the shit hits the fan, you care about every single person in the story, and I think that's exactly the problem with a lot of movies today, and a lot of bad movies in general. I'm not just going to say today, but movies over the ages, if you don't give a shit about the central characters, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I think we said something similar in our Jurassic Park review with Rob Parker. Like the reason that you care about these people being attacked by dinosaurs is because you've taken about 45 minutes getting to know them, and the same with this. Yeah, you care even for like Argyle, who's only got like a little small role, but like you care about everybody, even Takagi, who like you only barely meet, but he seems really nice. He seems really down to earth, and you don't want him to get shot in the head, which unfortunately he does. I'd say the only person you don't really care about is Ellis. But even then, you kind of know everything about him. They've given enough time and like interactions between Holly and him to kind of know that, like, oh, Ellis, what are you getting yourself in for when he's like, Hans, Bubby, I'm your white knight.
Well, he's just an idiot, isn't he? So it's like, even John, I love that scene's really special because John is really trying to save him in that moment. He thinks you're just a fucking idiot. What the hell are you doing?
Tell them you don't know me.
Hans. Yeah, so that's beautiful, that moment, because he could easily have just let him go and like not cared about it, but it shows that John has soul. And there was another, has a soul. Sorry, I don't know if he's got soul, but he's got a soul.
He hasn't got soles in his shoes, that's for sure.
Oh God, that's that scene.
We'll get to it. Don't worry.
Yeah, but the another sort of brilliant narrative moment I just thought is when he comes into the lobby of the Nakatomi building and he sort of scoffs at the computer that they've got that's like the touch screen technology of him like finding out the name, and that's not a wasted moment because that could just be an old school guy laughing at new technology, but what it is, it's a moment where you realize that she's changed her name back to Gennaro, which is her maiden name. So that's so again, it's nothing's wasted. Every moment of development has got these character building story story progressing moments in it, so it's just masterfully done, like masterfully created.
No, I agree. Like the name all like runs all the way through it. So like the first thing you know of her name is like, she's McClane, but she's going by Gennaro, and then she introduces herself as Gennaro to try and avoid being known as John's wife with Hans.
Yes, exactly.
But then by the end, John introduces her as Holly Gennaro, but then she corrects him and says Holly McClane. So that's the arc all the way. Her surname has an arc in this film. That's how well written the script is. It's insane.
Exactly. Yeah. No. It's never a wasted moment, and it's like one of those things that you think a scene like that at first you think, oh, what's the point of this moment, and then you realize it, and it's all their scenes. I completely believe, like when they're at each other's throats when he gets there and stuff, and so you basically, as soon as the shit kicks off, you're leaving this thing completely unresolved between them. This dispute, and it's kind of like right in the middle of it. So it's like that needs resolving. So that everything's up in the air, which is great. There's so much at stake. He has kids at home. It's like the stakes, as I think as Rob Parker said again in his Jurassic Park interview, the stakes could not be higher. I think that's a really good way of putting it. There's just one more thing I wanted to mention as well, just of my affection for the movie. When me and Sal got married, we went to Los Angeles for our honeymoon. and we went on an actual pilgrimage to Century City, which is it's kind of a fairly modern development. I can't remember if it was the 60s, 70s, or the 80s. It was around that kind of period, like late 60s, 70s, that basically Cleopatra, the movie, bankrupted 20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
So they had to sell off the backlot of 20th Century Fox to pay their debts after that movie was so hideously over budget.
Yeah.
So they sold it off and they built Century City, which is essentially, like some skyscrapers in the middle of LA, which is, huge, flat expanse. There's hardly any skyscrapers really in LA apart from Century City.
Yeah.
And so we went there. And we went into the what is I can't remember exactly what the building was called, but it's one of the main buildings there. And it is exactly the same. It's like you walk in there, the marble floors, the sort of, stone panels on the wall. You want to, one of those little hockey grenades they've got in the film that they slide along the floor, those little grenades. I said to Sal, I wish I had one of those right now because I just want to throw it along the floor. It was walking on to the set of Die Hard. That's
crazy.
It was Mike. It was unbelievable. Like I'm telling you, it hadn't
very
changed
jealous.
one bit. And it's great. So watching it back again yesterday brings back lovely memories of the honeymoon as well. So it's it's all love, man.
Oh, that's delightful to know.
Yeah.
I've got nothing like that. I just really like the damn film.
Well, what's your history with this film, Mike? Then, so did you see it from a young age like I did?
I think I watched it when I was maybe like 13 or 14 for the first time on TV. My parents hadn't really introduced me to it or anything because I don't think it's one of their favorites personally. So because obviously it was on every Christmas, so I was familiar with the title, and some of my friends at school had seen it. Maybe had been more a fan of Die Hard with a Vengeance, so they tried to lend me that on VHS and stuff, but I hadn't seen the original, so I had no interest really. But then watched it and was just in love with it from the very beginning, obviously, because it's so engrossing and you can't really turn away. It's one of those films that no matter where you join, if it's on TV, you can just watch it from the point you join until the end and still have just a fun time.
Well, what I hadn't realised about this film as well, which is something that we probably wouldn't get, being from the generation that we are, is that we've grown up with Bruce Willis as an action hero. Yeah. From the likes of Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Sigourney Weaver, and so on. But he was a comedy actor. Yeah. So, this was a news story at the time, apparently, in magazines, what the hell is Hollywood thinking? Casting this comedian as as an action star, which is, it's so bizarre to think because I can't think of him, as anything but a badass, moody douchebag, but it's at the time he was the sort of, in the same way, I guess it's in the same way that Michael Keaton, went from Beetlejuice to Batman, It's it was just such a transformation, of type, he was typed as a comedian. He was in this movie, this series called Moonlighting, which was really, really big. And I think my
parents are big fans of that. So.
Oh, really? Yeah. I asked my mum about that. She said she didn't see it, but apparently it was huge at the time.
No, they're really big fans of it. So I was familiar with Bruce Willis's face. I think they used to watch it back on the Paramount Comedy Channel, if you remember that on Sky.
Oh, yeah.
There were loads of reruns and just old episodes of Moonlighting on there. So when I watched it, I was like, oh, it's the guy from that show that my parents watch. I knew him from that. But apparently he was so exhausted from doing that, the show as well as the film at the same time, that's why the other parts were written up in the script. That's why.
What do you mean?
Originally there wasn't going to be a lot of time spent with Al outside or Hans Gruber, and the other roles in the film were actually beefed up and given more acting time, so that it wasn't always with Bruce Willis because he was just knackered all the time, apparently.
Yeah, well, there's that. Maybe it might have added to his performance as well. That kind of world weary, because from the start he looks absolutely knackered. He's getting off the plane, he looks jet lagged, from the start, and so that's fascinating, and I think that improves it. I think because I was going to say I think the character of Al is one of the, it's the heart of the film, really, isn't it? Their relationship.
Yeah, definitely gets them through it all the way.
Yeah, it gets him through it, and it's beautiful, and it's kind of and the fact that it's only him and Al, who are having these conversations together, he can sort of be more vulnerable with him because he's having to be tough with Hans and tough with the police and the FBI over the radio. It's the only time he can. And tough with, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the only time that he can let his guard down. And it's like, that kind of like, what would you call it? Like bromance, like relationship there.
Yeah, definitely.
The moment where they meet at the end it's beautiful, man. It's such a,
you can't help but smile, can you? Very
you
wholesome.
Can't help but smile. It's so kind of weirdly romantic, in the way like there's the smoke like dissipates and they hug and it's beautiful, man.
And I don't know about you, but it's the kind of like, what's the word? It's the relief in John's laugh when he's laughing with Al and just being like, oh my God, I can't believe we actually got through it. That actually feels, I don't know, it must be like the last shot of the entire like shooting schedule, because it feels like so. He feels so exhausted. Like, oh my God, I finally got it out of it. And I finally got to meet you and stuff. So, yeah, it feels real.
Also, that's a great moment. But also the sigh, when he meets Hans and he's just goes, Hans!
Oh, yeah. That's one of the greatest screams in all of movies for me.
Yeah, it's like, you bastard. Like, it's just so wonderfully kind of like, he's just exhausted. He's given everything.
I'm done. I'm ready.
I love it. He's just got the MP5 just aiming right at him. Like,
yeah.
And it's like 2 bullets left. Oh, it's amazing.
But that's what I love about it. Like the fact that that's the last scene between him and Hans, and like from how he starts being like so clean cut, and by the end he looks like he's been through absolute shit. And I absolutely love how much they didn't try and make him pretty, or they didn't try and like give him a white vest all the way through. Like apparently there was 17 different stages of his vest all the way through the film.
And starts off gleaming white and it ends up literally like oil black.
Yeah, almost. Well, he ends up shirtless, I'm pretty sure, because he's got the gun tied to his strapped to his back. But
yeah. With the Christmas duct tape.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Another example of why it's a Christmas film. But I'm pretty sure my friend Paul did a dissertation for his university on the degradation of John's vest. He did like about 7,000 words all on his vest and what it means to the film.
That's a continuity project right there, isn't it? For the people making the movie. Can you imagine? Yeah. The amount of Polaroids they must have taken of like the shirt to make sure. But I had this conversation with my mum. It's one of those like, oh, mum kind of moments where she was like, God, because she really, really fancies Bruce Willis in this movie. I think that's why it's one of my mum's favourite movies.
Don't blame her.
And she's like, she just said like, yeah, the way his shirt gets all mucky throughout it. And I was like, Mum, too much. But,
embarrassing, yeah.
Yeah, weird, but no, it's superb that, and I mean, just on a basic level, the world that it creates and the world that you're in feels dangerous. It feels really, really dangerous and mucky, and you feel the metal and the glass and like everything's out. Everything can hurt him. I mean, the glass moment, that feels like skipping ahead that a little bit, but
go for it, yeah.
The glass in the feet moment, for the queasy, more sort of easily grossed out viewers is, I mean, I consider myself a horror fanatic, and I think that's up there in one of the moments that I find really difficult to watch.
Do you mean when he's walking on it, or when he's having to pull it out of his feet?
I think, the shot where it shows his feet, I mean, the pulling out the feet is obviously horrendous, like in the bathtub. But the shot where you see him on his tiptoes and he's kind of like looking at the floor, and then they throw the grenades in, and you know that he's had to run across that minefield of glass. Yeah. I think there's something about just showing him his bare feet and the distance he's got to go. Yeah. Because your brain puts it together, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? And like things, and then when he gets to that room, he's like dragging himself in, and the black blood, real dark, like deep blood, like coming out of his feet and stuff. And I can't help but feel like in like a modern film, there'd be like, I don't know, John McClane would say to himself, "Not the glass, I need to step on that." And like, it's all kind of just, it's just shown in the cinematography, just shows everything you need to know. Although I think the only thing that they do, which always makes me laugh, is like Hans talking to Carl,
saying like shooting the fenster, and it's like he doesn't understand. Shoot the glass. It's oh, I understand the English now. Thank you for explaining that.
That's a Monty Python moment. That is literally the Monty Python moment of like where they're like, oui, hurry, what? Let's go.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. It always felt like a Monty Python moment. Yeah,
it is literally the Holy Grail moment of the French knights, isn't it? Yeah,
not understanding their natural language, but then understanding English. Yeah,
and also a bit of like Mel Brooks of the. The I think we talked about this on the last show for some reason, but the German, no, not the German, the Hungarian police officer in Young Frankenstein.
Footsteps.
Yeah, following in his grandfather's footsteps. What? Following in his grandfather's footsteps. Oh, footsteps. Yeah.
Yeah, footsteps. Yeah.
He's too Hungarian for the villagers. I love that. Oh, amazing.
But speaking, but like that moment also, I feel like kind of just shows how diabolical and conniving Hans is as well. Like he doesn't care about like rules of engagement or, trying to be a gentleman. He's like vindictive against John, and he wants his feet to be cut up with glass. So that's why he's like, okay, we've got him stuck. If he's getting out injured. He's getting out hurt. And that is just another level of Hans being like, you think he's, I can't help but feel like Hans, in the same way that John starts so clean cut, so does Hans. Hans like turns up in this like 3-piece suit and he's absolutely like looking sublime. But then by the end, his hair's all straggled. He's like climbing over to Holly saying, "I am an exceptional thief," and like he's all he's all manic and he's all just and like it's the degradation of his character all the way through, just to show how like just petty he is at the end of the end of it all. And it's such a great character study in both John and Hans as like opposites of each other that
every defeat of him is just taking a little bit more from him, like when he's got because the original thing is when he doesn't anticipate that John's going to take the bag with the detonators in it.
Yeah, my detonators.
He's like all he gives a shit about. He doesn't care about any of his men, really. And it's like he's just. I mean, Alan Rickman. I mean, he's not only has Alan Rickman never been better, but I can't think of a better villain in any movie. I think he is the best villain of all time. I really do.
I can see that.
I mean, I just can't. I can't think of any other examples where. He's just so funny and kind of, the sense of humour, the sort of like deadpan, world-weary.
He's very charismatic, yeah.
Yeah, and the way when he shoots Mr. Takagi and he says, "Right, dispose of that."
And, he won't be joining us for the rest of his life.
Oh yeah, and he's just eating a snack,
lines,
eating a peanut as he says it. Like.
I'd say potentially, I know this may be controversial for you, but I'd say it's only rivaled by Daniel Plainview for cinematic villains.
I would, yeah. I mean, I suppose I don't think directly of Daniel as a villain, more of an anti-hero, if you like.
That's why I thought it would be controversial with you, because I know that he's the star of that film and it is his story. But he's a bad
guy, that's for sure. He's a bad guy. But no, I think that in terms of direct villain, good guys versus villains, I think that. But
I'd say Hans Lander as well potentially is a very similar kind of charismatic but evil as hell villain.
Oh, he's definitely on the same level, isn't he? I mean, if we're going we're talking, Alan Rickman and then sorry, Hans Gruber, then Hans Lander, after
all
him,
the Hanses,
all the Germans, yeah. And also, I have to say, I think you know this actually, but I'm gonna have to confess to the listeners, I only saw Die Hard 2 for the first time 2 months ago. And I saw bits of it as a child, but I never I couldn't have told you what happened in the film until about 2 months ago that you lent me your Blu-ray box set. So
you're very welcome for that.
Thank you. I had, on the other hand, we'll skip over that. I had, on the other hand, seen Die Hard with a Vengeance probably just as much as this. I think I love Die Hard with a Vengeance. I think it's a superb sequel and much, much better than the second one, I think. Yeah,
I agree. For me, it goes, Die Hard, Die Hard, then Die Hard 3, and then Die Hard 2, then Die Hard 4, then Die Hard 5, which we don't talk about, so it's all good.
Not so good, Al.
Good.
It's difficult to say what's bad about the second one or what's less satisfying, but there's something that doesn't quite I don't know. It doesn't quite gel really in the second one, I don't think. It's by no means a bad film. It's just not, anywhere near as good as the first and third.
It feels like they're trying to capture lightning in a bottle again.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, everything worked well with Die Hard, but you're just trying to kind of recreate the same thing. But I love what is about Die Hard is the fact that John is such a fantastic everyman. I feel like he is such... Yeah, he isn't like a Mary Sue or whatever they call them in like fiction, where like they're overpowered and, they don't suffer any injuries and they always land on their feet. Like, John gets shot, he gets cut, he gets beaten up, he nearly dies so many times.
Yeah.
But he always like has the humor about him. He's very dark and witty and sarcastic, and just like he still sticks it to authority when he needs it. Like with Dwayne Robinson outside, he's like, I'm not the one who just got butt fucked on national TV, Dwayne. And like, it's such a great line that you kind of like are there with him all the way through, like willing him to the end of this and surviving it. And I think it's just a great portrayal and so well written as well. We kind of mentioned just how well written everything is and like how well written John and Hans are. But what I love is that like every single like person on Hans's team seems to be a character in themselves. Like you've got Carl's brother, who is just a bit of a nerd, who's like, you won't shoot me, you're a policeman. Police aren't allowed to shoot people.
There are rules for policemen.
Exactly, yeah. You've got like the Asian guy who eats the Crunch Bar while he's waiting, and like that's such a nice character moment for it to every one of them seems to be like a person.
Quite a lot of time on it makes them separate. Very recognizable sort of, if not stereotyped kind of, characters. But,
the receptionist downstairs, the hacker, the nerdish hacker, who's the one who's chatting a lot. Everyone's memorable. Everyone has like their moment or their line. Even the guy who's like, "No more table."
Next time you have to kill someone. Yeah. Why is he Mexican? That guy, I don't really get that.
No idea.
He's got like a very sort of Spanish accent.
He's from all over the place. But like among my friends, that line, "No more table," was said so many times during our college and university years. We just used to say it to each other all the time. Just because
the line I say from this quite a lot is, "Don't waste time talking to me." I think I've said that. I say that quite a lot. If someone says something over the phone, I'll be like, "Right, great. Well, don't waste time talking to me then. Bye."
Why? Who says that?
Hans. I think he's talking to the hack. The guy who's cutting into the vault. And he goes, it's going well, but the next one's going to take a miracle. And he's like, "Well, don't waste time talking to me."
Right? Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. I just remember
the other line from Holly, which is brilliant, is after Carl smashes the office to pieces, after he hears the news of his brother's death, he says, "John's still alive," or something like that. And he says, "How do you know? Only John can make someone that crazy." That's like a really great line.
But again, that's another little piece of like character development. The fact is that like she obviously recognizes that anger because he is such a infuriating person, and that just adds more to their history, more to their It adds much more, character development to both of them, and I like it.
At this point, I have to mention the computer, the sort of PlayStation incarnation of this film, because we had in the mid-90s we had a game for the PlayStation 1 called Die Hard Trilogy. The first one was basically a third-person shooter in the Nakatomi building. The second one was our favourite, with the one that we played the most, which was a basically on-the-rails shooter. Ironically, I played Die Hard 2 the most.
I was going to say,
never saw the movie, which was
you
really
had
weird.
No idea what was going on. Or
I had no idea what was going on.
So when you watched it like 2 months ago, did you finally like understand all these references from like one of your favorite games?
Exactly that, yeah. So it was bizarre because these moments, like there was a moment in the game where you would get into a cockpit of a plane and like loads of grenades would come over the front.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, and then obviously seeing the movie, I was like, that's that scene, and it's like, so it was a really strange and completely backwards experience.
That's so crazy to think.
Yeah.
You did it backwards instead. That's awesome.
Really, really strange. But yeah, did you ever play that or no?
That was one that my friend had on his PlayStation, but unfortunately I was a Nintendo kid. So, that was going to be a bit too violent for the good old Nintendo 64. So, had to play it at my friend's house. And I always watched... Because again, this was before I had ever seen the film, so it was just a guy in a white tank top running around an office just shooting out windows, and I was like, "Is this all the game is?" And he was like, "Oh no, it's there's more to it," but I had no idea.
as much as like shooting the windows in GoldenEye was really fun. It was really fun shooting out all the windows and like blowing up like sort of cars and things like that. Yeah, but no, a really really fun game and hugely influential on us as children.
I can imagine. So speaking of how amazing Alan Rickman is as Hans Gruber, did you know that this was like his first ever film?
No. I had no idea. That's crazy. What?
No, seriously. This is like the first film he'd ever. He was like a stage actor beforehand, and then like this is like his first one. He got to Hollywood or California or wherever it is like 2 days before the shooting started. But before that, he had no experience of being in Hollywood. This is his first ever film, and yeah, he was nervous as hell apparently.
Wow! Oh my god, that's crazy.
But you couldn't tell, could you?
Not at all. I mean, as we've said, is one of the best, if not the best, screen villain ever. There's not a sign of like any amateurish performance or like the idea. I mean, he's just amazing from the very beginning. I get so excited that scene where they first get out of the truck, at the beginning and just march towards the camera. Yeah, it's just like the baddies, but you just like fuck yeah. Like when you see them, it's just something because there's
they carry themselves so cockily and so well. Yeah, I think that kind of only emphasizes just how well planned out everything is. Like the fact that Hans knows exactly what is going to happen. He knows when the FBI are coming to cut off the power, and that helps him with the plan. It is I don't know. It works so well. And like again, I think we discussed this in our Inglourious Bastards one, talking about Hans Landa, like we mentioned earlier. But just like when you kind of respect the villain for like, oh god, he has planned this out. He's an intelligent guy.
And every moment that seems like it's an advantage to the FBI, you're like, oh no, this is exactly what they wanted to happen. Pretty much up to the very end, because he says, this was an inevitability and in some points necessary, So it's like you kind of get behind his eyes. You're like, oh, he is cool with this. Like this is like needs to happen.
Yeah, and like not only that, but they kind of like depict the FBI with Johnson & Johnson not related being like so cocksure and gung-ho. And like Dwayne Robinson being like the police chief who's in over his head and doesn't know what he's doing. But so much so that it makes you relate to not only Alan and John more, but kind of like I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like you're kind of like happy that Hans is like getting one over on them. I find maybe it's my initial A-card nonsense, but yeah.
Well, it's that thing of like the police in this, apart from Allah, are just painted as the most brutish, stupid, arrogant, macho douchebags like in the world, and then the FBI guys as well, Johnson and Johnson, no relation. When they get killed, like Al says, oh no, geez, we could need some more FBI guys, I guess. Like FBI guys.
It's treated in such a exactly. Yeah, they're just going to be replaced by two new feds, and even like John's like reaction to them, just like, oh god, the feds are here now. No, we don't need that. We don't need that at all.
Yeah, the bit I love the introduction when Al's like patrolling up and John wants to get his attention, so he throws the dead terrorist out the window onto his car and then machine guns his car into the ground with like a sort of Gatling gun sort of thing, and like it's just like he really got his attention with that one. It's a superb film. I mean, it gets better with age. I watched it yesterday from start to finish, and it's just perfect. There's nothing I would change. All the performances are solid. It's really well acted. There's nothing that's like there's really nothing that I would look at as being outdated or like in any way really. It's just perfect, and I love it. Absolutely love it.
Okay, I'm gonna read out some names of people who were apparently pictured to be John McClane, okay?
Oh,
and I want you to tell me whether they actually would do well or better or worse than what you think.
Okay, so these were legit casting choices that they could have gone with.
Yes, people who were considered before, well, because as you mentioned, Bruce Willis was considered to be too much of a comedy actor. And that's why like his face isn't on the poster, because everyone, they thought they was going to be like laughed at or like said that, oh God, I'm not going to go see the thing with the comedy guy in. But, okay, so we've got Michael Madsen.
Yippee-ki-yay! Not a bad choice, actually. Not a bad choice. I mean, similar demeanour. It's like kind of got resting bitch face. Like constantly, tough guy, but Could show some soul. He's not quite as. I mean, he's all tough, isn't he? Really, I don't think
he's all gruff voice.
He's He's all sort of He's all masculine. Him. I don't think you would have any kind of heart. He's not got much heart to him, has he? So not a bad choice, not a terrible choice, but not too great.
On the opposite side, Richard Gere.
No way.
Too soft of a face, I feel.
He could have played. Who's the guy who sniffs the cocaine and tries to negotiate with the terrorists? He could be
Ellis.
He could be Ellis. Yeah. No, I don't think. No way, McClane.
No.
Okay.
Al Pacino. Al Pacino was offered it and turned it down.
Yippee-ki-yay! Do you know what? Having seen the Carlito's Way and what's the other movie that he's got? Donnie Brasco. He's got such range, Al Pacino, that I think a lot of people don't give him credit for. Do you know what? I think he would have been pretty good actually in this. Yeah, I think so. Because he can be funny, but he can show weakness as well. I think he would have been. That's not a terrible choice, actually.
And last but not least, this one is a very weird one. You may have to do some Googling if you aren't familiar with him. But Jack Lemmon.
One more like that, and I'm a goner.
Was he still alive in 1988?
He was 1988. He lobbied hard for the role, but the producer said he was just too darn old. Can you imagine? I mean, he has more of an everyman about him, but my God.
I've Googled him now. He looks like my granddad. No, I don't.
Right, exactly. Can you imagine that?
Maybe in his heyday, but that's quite strange. That's
Definitely.
really, really odd. I could see. I mean, it'd be a very different film. But I suppose that would be the idea of like a retiree cop like coming to the Christmas party and having to come out of retirement.
Exactly. I can't imagine him like falling from an elevator down that shaft and like popping himself in there saying, come out to the coast, have a few laughs.
He couldn't do all that kind of stuff.
He couldn't do all that stuff,
the physical stuff. Do you know who would be kind of cool? And I have to Google him. I mean, in 88, he might still be a bit old, but Clint Eastwood. Like, Eastwood would have been pretty fucking...
I'd say him more than Lemon, but still, I think, Bruce Willis has got it so down. I can't imagine anyone else but him, personally.
Well, he just ticks all the boxes for, what the movie script became. I mean, there might have been several drafts where it was a different type of movie. It's based on a novel, I believe, as well. I read that somewhere.
Yeah,
it was,
I believe so.
It was an established novel, wasn't it, before, but which they tweaked. I think they tweaked it quite a lot, though. I think it doesn't share that much with the novel, does it?
In the same way that Texas Chainsaw's based on Ed Gein,
Yeah, or like Starship Troopers. Have you ever read any Starship Troopers, like the novel?
I haven't, but speaking of Starship Troopers, did you know that Paul Verhoeven was in line to direct as well?
Oh, well, I was surprised when I found out that this movie wasn't directed by Paul Verhoeven. Let's put it that way.
Well, I would love to have seen it. I would have loved to have seen Verhoeven's Die Hard. That would have been very interesting for me.
Because this has a really Verhoeven feel to it in terms of the sort of the satire with the news and the police, and the cops are idiots and sort of vulgar, like those moments. So I think it would have, it could have been even improved by him. Although John McTiernan, I mean, he directed Predator as well, didn't he? I believe, and so I mean, I can't fault him. It's perfect, but I think the only other director I could think of that would be great at this would have been Verhoeven, or possibly Cameron in his sort of True Lies sort of vibes.
Yeah, I could see that. I think there would have been too much of a polish, I think, if Cameron had done it. This is nice and gritty, and it doesn't mind, going into the vents with John, I find.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I think Cameron would have given it a bit too much polish or a bit too much comedy. Maybe if he was going for that True Lies thing. But
I'd be very surprised if Verhoeven didn't have a pass on the script or something, because you make a really good point. Like the satire about the police and stuff like that. I can't help but feel like that isn't some part of his influence somehow. Yeah,
and all those embarrassing moments with the news anchors and stuff. That feels directly out of like RoboCop or something like that. And it's a very, very similar vibe. And also the Ellis character is so I mean he might as well be in RoboCop, that guy. That kind of like super yuppie sort of cocaine douchebag like vibes. Yeah, so no, I never thought of that, but God, I wish Verhoeven would make more movies. I think he's just amazing. We'll
start the petition now. Verhoeven to direct Die Hard 6.
Oh yeah, it might be decent. Who knows?
Yeah, if Willis is coming back, we'll bring in
starring
Verhoeven.
Nick Nolte as an old McClane.
I was going to say starring Jack Lemmon, but he's gone now, so maybe not.
Yeah, we're going to have to begin the thawing of Jack Lemmon.
Yippee-ki-yay!
Exactly, yeah. So that's all from Matt and myself today, so thank you very much for joining us. If you would like to hear more from us, subscribe to our channel and be sure to like this video as it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Twitch by searching for the name Matt and Mike Pull Focus. Say Merry Christmas, Matt.
Merry Christmas, Matt.
And it's Merry Christmas from me as well. Merry Christmas all, and to all a good night.